Every day, almost 10,000 cars roar up Highway 395. Most of them have no idea they're passing within miles of the oldest living things on this planet. But we aim to be among the tiny 1% that actually turns east, leaving the valley floor and heading 10,000 feet up into the Ancient Bristlecone Pine Forest. Though before we can do that, we have to handle some operational issues of our own. You see, when you're traveling where we're going, there's no tolerance for failure, especially when it comes to your running gear. We're leaving the safety of the valley for a climb that's as remote as it is steep. In just a few miles, we'll hit 10% grades and lose cell service completely. Up here, there's no gas, no water, and no one coming to help if a $10 part fails. When you're pulling 7,000 pounds into the dead zone, you make sure everything is right before you leave the pavement. While the shop handles the tire, we're handling the final supplies at this conveniently located grocery store right next door. It's a strange contrast to think about as we pull out of the shop. A $5 valve stem, a product of modern engineering, almost grounded our entire trip. Rubber dries out. Plastic gets brittle, metal fatigues. Our advanced materials are designed for convenience, but they aren't exactly built for eternity. But the trees we're headed toward, they've survived for 50 centuries by doing the exact opposite. They don't rely on synthetic seals or flexible parts. At the edge of Big Pine, there's one last stop. A small information kiosk tucked into a memorial park dedicated to our armed forces. It's a quiet place to get your bearings before the climb. This stump is all that remains of the Roosevelt tree. It was a giant sequoia planted a century ago to mark this very road. But even a giant couldn't survive the stress of the valley floor. It succumbed to disease and drought in 2020. As we cross Big Pine Creek, we're crossing the lifeblood of the valley, the same headwaters that flow down from the High Sierra peaks we explored a few episodes back. But today, we're turning our back on the glaciers and heading east. We're moving away from the water and into the rain shadow of the White Mountains. It's a shift from the land of moving ice to a land of ancient standing wood. As we enter the Inyo National Forest, we begin to gain altitude, and the valley floors give way to deep canyons. We pass the 6,000-foot mark, and the walls begin to close in. The road becomes a ribbon of asphalt pinned against the rock. Finally, we hit the narrowest part. It's a literal slot canyon where the road shrinks to a single lane. But here's the catch. There's no traffic control. No lights, no signs. You just have to hold your breath and hope you don't meet another rig in the middle. And if you do, the law of the mountain is clear. The downhill driver has to back up. And looking at the size of our trailer, I'm really hoping we don't have to put that rule to the test today. Just as we clear the narrowest part of the slot, reality comes charging around the corner. A pair of massive commercial hay trucks, likely coming from the ranches in Deep Springs Valley. 1 minute earlier and we would have met that truck inside the slot. Talk about timing. We're gaining altitude fast now, and you can feel the truck working for every foot. Our objective is Grandview Campground, sitting at 8,600 feet. From here on out, the road only gets steeper, and the air only gets thinner. Just before we hit the campground, we pass a small picnic area. The signs say no overnight camping, but it's a perfect spot if you're just visiting for the day. Being a pull-through, it's easy to get an RV into. You can take advantage of the space to rest your vehicle and yourself before making that final 1,500-foot push up to the Methuselah Grove. We finally pull into Grandview on the left, our home for the next few days. One of the biggest question marks of this entire trip is whether we're actually going to find a spot that fits us. At $10 a night, it's a bargain, but here the only services you'll find are pit toilets. No trash, no water, and certainly no hookups. We spend some time scouting and rejecting a few sites that just don't feel right. But finally, we find one we think is going to work. It's got enough room for the rig, it's relatively level, and most importantly, it gives us exactly what we came here for. It's a bit tight, but we can make it okay.
I need to go as far back as I can and then straighten out a little bit because I've got this bush over here. I can't go too far to my right.
This is our "Don't Be That Girl" reminder. Put your fires out when you leave camp. You never know when the winds might pick up. While not the perfect site, it's not hard to get situated, and it's going to be just fine for our stay. So now that we're all settled in, let's get a better view of this campground. At 8,600 feet, Grandview isn't just a place to park, it's a portal to the stars. Nestled in the rain shadow of the Sierras, the air here is so dry and the sky so dark that it's become a legendary sanctuary for astronomers. That dryness plays an integral part in the visibility here. Without moisture in the air to diffract the light, the views through the telescope are much more accurate and clear than almost anywhere else in the world. And because we're sitting above a significant portion of the Earth's atmosphere, there's simply less haze between us and the edge of the galaxy. With the trailer dropped, the truck feels light as we begin the final 5-mile climb to the Methuselah Grove. It's late afternoon, and while the sun is still up, the shadows are starting to stretch across the White Mountains. The views opening up around us are staggering, but we aren't the only ones out here. Shortly after we start the climb, we encounter a lone coyote right in the middle of the road. He seems more curious than afraid, holding his ground and watching us with a calm, steady gaze as we slowly roll past. It feels like a quiet welcome to the high country, a reminder that up here we are very much in someone else's home. We pass the Sierra Vista at about 9,000 feet. Even from the truck, the scale of the Great Basin and the jagged peaks of the Sierras across the valley is overwhelming. We aren't stopping now, the sun is dropping too fast, but we're already planning to head back here later to see if we can catch one of those legendary high-altitude sunsets. We're making the final turn into Shulman Grove, and we hit the 10,000-foot mark. The world feels different. The pinyon junipers have been left behind, and the first of the ancient bristlecones begin to appear against the late afternoon sky. Stepping out of the truck, the air is thin, sharp, and significantly colder than it was just a few miles ago. We're in a race against the sun now. The visitor center is already closed, and the shadows are deep. We have to move fast if we want to experience the Discovery Trail before the mountain goes dark. We reach the trailhead and make a quick decision. We're saving the Methuselah walk for a longer exploration later, so we're heading left onto the Discovery Trail. This loop is our first real introduction to the ancients, trees that have survived on this mountain for thousands of years. Along the path, we pass a fallen bristlecone that reveals the secret to their longevity. These trees grow so slowly that a single inch of trunk can represent 100 years of survival, resulting in growth rings so dense they're almost microscopic. It's this incredibly tight grain that makes the wood so hard and rot-resistant, allowing it to stand for millennia, even after the tree has died. It's natural to assume that the oldest trees would be the biggest, but the opposite is true here. The oldest specimens are often smaller and more gnarled. In this harsh environment, those that grow the slowest, surviving on the thinnest margins, are the ones that endure for thousands of years. This trail is incredibly well laid out. If you only have a short amount of time here, this is the one you want to take. It's just about a mile long and features interpretive signs throughout that help you make sense of this ancient landscape. We were expecting a very tame, flat walk for the Discovery Trail, but we quickly realized there's a bit of elevation gain to it. While it's nothing extreme, it's definitely more than we anticipated, especially when every step is being taken at 10,000 feet. The trail is actually a bit of a climb through the rocks, and in this thin air you feel every bit of that incline. It's a good reminder that even a short hike up here requires a lot more effort from your lungs than you might expect. As we climb higher, the rocks underfoot change, and you realize you're actually walking on an ancient seabed. These red quartzite rocks began millions of years ago as sand and shells at the bottom of a shallow ocean. The weight of the sea compressed them into sandstone, and then the heat and pressure of the mountains rising turned them into the hard red quartzite we see today. As the last of the light fades, we reach a ridge that feels incredibly familiar. We've seen these exact trees in magazines and films, and standing here, it's easy to see why. In this twilight, they feel more like monuments than living things. It's surreal to realize these silhouettes were already ancient millennia before the first camera ever captured them. By the time we hit the final stretch, the mountain is pitch black. It wasn't the quick, flat walk we expected, but seeing those silhouettes against the twilight was worth the hike back in the dark. Now it's time to get back to camp and get dinner rolling. Nothing beats a high-altitude morning. We've got the Blackstone fired up for eggs and sausage, fueling up for what's going to be a long day of exploring. After that cold hike last night, a hot breakfast is exactly what we need before we take the truck off the pavement to see what else these mountains are hiding. The sites here are primitive, but the concrete tables and fire rings are high quality. Having a solid setup like this definitely improves the experience when you're dry camping. Even a simple breakfast like this tastes so good. And of course, it tastes even better with hot sauce. The weather is shifting and it looks like rain is moving in. I'm stowing the auxiliary solar panel before we leave. It won't do much under these clouds anyhow, and I'd rather keep it dry while we're off exploring. Camp is buttoned up and we're ready to roll. We're leaving the maintained gravel of Grandview for Forest Road 6S01, Black Canyon Road. This track drops right off the back of the campground, trading the easy pads for rugged dirt and a deep dive into the area's mining history. So far, the road isn't too bad, but in our experience, these Forest Service tracks rarely get better the further you travel out. The ruts are already starting to get a bit deeper. As we climb, the terrain opens up into some incredible views. We aren't the only ones out here though. We found a group at the crest enjoying a picnic with a front row seat to the valley. Honestly, you couldn't ask for a better lunch spot. Crossing the crest, the road takes a decided turn for the worse. As the road narrows, you have to imagine the miners in the 1800s navigating these same slopes with pack wagons. No food, no water, just absolute isolation and the hope that they brought enough supplies to survive. We've stumbled onto an abandoned settlement, and while it's clearly old, it feels a bit newer than the 1800s boom. Someone was living and working here much more recently, perhaps mid-century prospectors trying their luck where the old-timers left off. We know we're quite close to the appropriately named Grandview Mine, which operated intermittently from 1887 through the early 1900s, with a brief revival again in the late 1930s. Unlike many of the gold fever claims in the West, this was primarily a lead and silver operation. Because of the extreme altitude and isolation, miners had to haul the heavy ore down these steep canyons by pack animal to reach the nearest smelters. From up here, you can see why they called it Grandview. The vista is world class, but looking at the debris on the ground, you see the reality. A life of backbreaking labor in a place with no natural water and some of the harshest winters in California. It's a stunning place to visit, but it must have been a brutal place to try and strike it rich. As predicted, the rain is starting to arrive, and we're heading back. Driving this road when it's wet is definitely not on our to-do list. We're back on the pavement of White Mountain Road, heading deeper into the range. We just passed the turn for Schulman Grove, but we're pushing further, heading way up to the Patriarch Grove. At over 11,000 feet, the landscape is about to change completely as we leave the trees behind for the high alpine tundra. We aren't just leaving the trees behind, we're leaving the pavement behind too. It's a 12-mile stretch of dirt from here to the Patriarch Grove. The road is rocky, but it isn't overly technical. Just about any car can make it, provided you have good tires and, most importantly, a spare. At this altitude, the sharp rocks are notorious for testing your equipment. Wow, did you see that? It's right where we're headed. That strike looks like it's only about 7 or 8 miles away, right over the Patriarch Grove. Being at 11,000 feet during a lightning storm is a serious situation. Your natural instinct is to hide in the trees, but out here, standing on a ridge or near a lone tree actually makes you a target. The air is thinner and you are physically closer to the discharge. It's one of the few times when staying in the truck, which acts as a Faraday cage, is significantly safer than being out on the trail. Even as we push toward the Grove, we're keeping a very close eye on how fast that cell is moving. We've been on a number of epic roads on our travels, and I can safely tell you this one sits near the top of that list. It's a very pleasant surprise. What makes it even better is that there's almost nobody else out here. Perhaps it's the weather keeping people away, but we're not complaining. Having this much scenery all to ourselves is exactly why we head this far off the beaten path. Most of the year, this road ends at a locked gate just past the Patriarch Grove, but once or twice a year they hold an open gate day that allows the public to drive all the way up to Barcroft Station at 12,470 feet. It's a huge deal for hikers because it shaves 4 miles off the trek to the 14,242-foot summit of White Mountain Peak. If you ever plan to do it, make sure your tires are ready. The research station strongly recommends high clearance 4x4s. Crossing 11,000 feet, we get a brief stretch of pavement. It's likely here to prevent the steep grade from washing out, and we're enjoying the smooth ride while it lasts. But as quickly as it started, the pavement ends, and it's back to the dirt for a final push. Now that we're back in the trees, the narrow road presents a whole new set of challenges. We can't easily go wide to avoid oncoming traffic here. When you're this high up and the trail tightens, passing another rig requires a bit of patience and some careful tire placement. And we've arrived. It's still raining, but with the lightning holding off for now, we're going to head out for this short hike. The truck thermometer is reading 49 degrees, a far cry from the weather we left back below. We're taking the Timberline Trail. Originally, our hope was to take a longer hike up here. There are several great options like the Cottonwood Creek Trail that really let you get deep into the wilderness. But given the weather and the lingering chance for lightning, we're thankful they have this short condensed loop accessible for us. Take a look at this tiny bristlecone. In any other forest, you'd assume this was just a couple of years old. But here at 11,000 feet, growth is measured in centuries, not seasons. Because of the nutrient-poor dolomite soil and the brutal alpine winters, a tree that size could easily be 75 years old. Even in the rain, the Patriarch Tree is a sight to behold. It's estimated to be around 1,500 years old. And while it isn't the oldest tree in these mountains, it is the largest bristlecone pine in the world by volume. Its multi-stemmed trunk and twisted orange-tinted wood create a sort of natural fortress. You can see how the harsh wind and ice have sculpted it over the centuries, stripping away the bark and leaving behind this incredibly dense, resinous wood that is almost immune to rot. This was definitely on our bucket list of things to see up here, and I'm so glad we finally had the opportunity. But it isn't getting any warmer, and our gear is starting to soak through. It's time to head back down to camp, where it's a bit warmer and dry off. This mountain definitely made us work for the view today. We're back at Shulman Grove for a second look. Our sunset hike on the Discovery Trail was incredible, but we knew we couldn't leave the White Mountains without tackling the big one, the Methuselah Loop. We always make it a point to drop into the visitor centers. It's the best way to wrap your head around the history and the science before you actually hit the dirt. In here, you learn that it's a combination of the white dolomite soil and the work of Dr. Edmund Schulman that put this place on the map. By studying core samples, Schulman proved these trees were already ancient when the pyramids were being built. It's a lot to take in, but it's the perfect primer for what we're about to see out on the trail. Like most visitor centers, they have the usual souvenirs and apparel on display. It's the perfect spot to grab a souvenir before heading out. Stepping back outside, the sky is wide open and blue. It looks like a perfect day for a hike, but at 10,000 feet, we know the weather can change in a heartbeat. We're enjoying the clear views while they last. As we descend into the grove, the first thing we notice is how much denser the forest is here compared to the Patriarch Grove. We're about 1,000 feet lower now, and that slightly milder weather seems to let these trees grow much closer together than the isolated ancients we saw up there. As we head deeper into the loop, the ground transitions into a lighter rocky soil. This is dolomite, a specific type of alkaline soil that's high in calcium and magnesium, but extremely low in nutrients. Most plants and trees can't survive in these harsh conditions, which is exactly why the bristlecones thrive here. By growing where nothing else can, they eliminate the competition for water and space, giving these ancients the entire ridge to themselves. Keep in mind, the Methuselah Loop starts downhill. You've got about 800 feet of elevation gain to tackle, and because of the way the trail's laid out, you'll be doing that climbing at the very end. Notice how so many of these trees look partially dead, with strips of weathered wood running all the way up to the top. It's a unique survival strategy where the roots are directly linked to specific sections of the canopy. This sectored architecture is a pretty exclusive club. While most trees have a unified system, only a few species, like ancient junipers, certain cedars, and of course the bristlecones, use this extreme method to survive. It's a specialized trait for the world's oldest inhabitants, allowing them to sacrifice part of themselves to endure for the long haul. This forest is just fascinating. It's easily among the most unique we've ever visited. Many of the trees out here appear completely dead at first glance, but when you get close to them, you realize they're in fact still living. At least some slivers are. That's the sectored architecture at work. It's a surprise to see mountain mahogany thriving right alongside the pines. These shrubs are actually dolomite tolerant, making them one of the rare companions to the bristlecone in an alkaline environment like this. It's a tough plant for a tough landscape. You can see these massive outcroppings of light-colored rock along the trail. This is the dolomite. It's actually a calcium-rich ancient seabed that's been pushed up to 10,000 feet. And here we have some mountain pussytoes. These fuzzy little spikes are the ultimate survivors of the high alpine. They grow as cushion plants, hugging the ground to stay out of the brutal mountain winds. That thick fuzz on the flowers actually acts like a tiny greenhouse, trapping heat and moisture to help the plant thrive in the thin, dry air at 10,000 feet. Somewhere in this stretch of ridge lies Methuselah, a tree that was already ancient when the pyramids were being built. It's a strange feeling knowing we're so close, yet surrounded by dozens of trees that look just as legendary. We have that National Geographic photo for reference, but in this landscape of twisted wood, every tree looks like a contender. It would be too easy if we could just start with the biggest tree, but as we've learned, these ancients don't work that way. In fact, it really makes you wonder how Dr. Schulman targeted which trees to core sample. It must have been an incredibly lengthy process. He couldn't have sampled every single one of them, so he had to have a keen eye for the ones that had truly survived the ages. Looking through Schulman's eyes, we're ignoring the lush green trees and focusing on the ones that look like they've been through a war. We're looking for that strip bark growth, where a single vein of life keeps a few branches green while the rest of the tree is polished to a golden sheen by the wind. It's usually the small stunted trees on the steepest slopes that hold the deepest history. There's another clue to look for, and it's right at the base of the trunk. Over thousands of years, the wind and rain slowly wash away the soil, leaving the upper roots completely exposed. In some cases, you can see where the ground level used to be several feet higher when the tree was first sprouted. Seeing a tree standing on these stilted roots is a dead giveaway that it's been holding its ground for more than just a few centuries. So, we may very well be gazing upon Methuselah right now, or perhaps he's just a few hundred feet away, laughing to himself about how these silly, short-lived humans are so obsessed with finding the oldest tree. Since the Forest Service keeps the location a mystery to protect the grove, we'll never know for sure, but standing here among these monuments, it feels like enough just to be in their presence. It's humbling to think that while Methuselah gets all the fame, he's just one of thousands of ancients out here. Given how many gnarled, stunted trees are tucked into these steep slopes, it's nearly a certainty that even older trees are out here, undiscovered. We're walking through a graveyard of giants, and some of the oldest might not even have a name yet. And when we talk about the oldest living thing, it's important to make a distinction. We're talking about a singular, non-clonal organism, one tree with one trunk that has stood here for 5,000 years. This is different from clonal organisms, like certain aspen groves or coral reefs, that live for tens of thousands of years by constantly cloning themselves. For a single individual life form, nothing on Earth beats the bristlecone. As we climb our way back up the trail, doing the loop clockwise today, we've hit this incredible overlook. Somewhere down there, past those hazy ridges, lies Death Valley. It's wild to think that we're standing at 10,000 feet in a subalpine forest looking down at one of the lowest, hottest places on Earth. Two extremes, both visible in a single frame. Those blue skies we started with are officially gone. The clouds have moved in fast, and that distant thunder is telling us exactly what we need to do. At this elevation, you don't argue with a storm. We're picking up the pace for this final climb back to the trailhead. It's time to get off the ridge. That is, if I can get around this tree. The storm is definitely picking up, but there's a silver lining here. Climbing uphill at high altitude feels hard enough, but doing it in the beating sun is even worse. The drop in temperature and the light mist are making this final ascent a lot more manageable, even if the thunder is telling us to hurry up. We're back to the sign we were supposed to stay to the right of as we headed down. We're to the right of it now. Does that count? As we leave these ridges and head back down toward the valley, you can't help but feel a massive shift in perspective. The weather up here is as ancient and powerful as the trees themselves. It's easy to just keep driving up the 395, chasing the next big landmark. But these ancients are worth the detour. Standing among lives that have endured for 5,000 years teaches you something about patience that a quick roadside stop just can't deliver. So next time you're in the area, don't just pass them by. Set aside the time to experience this high-altitude sanctuary, because long after the storm passes, the perspective you find up here is what really stays with you.